Okay, would everybody please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So for roll call, Kevin Reed is out, and I believe...
Did Kevin want to be called?
Yeah, he wants to be on a call, yeah.
So
I was just
call him?
No.
Okay.
Well, how would I call him?
That's why I'm asking, because
I don't have his phone number. I may, but I don't.
you started me. I thought maybe you already had one already.
No, I don't have yours.
All right.
And Frank Lito is missing, obviously.
Hopefully this will work.
Okay. So Frank technically will be voting, so I know the vote is 8-0. 8-0.
Hello, it's Kevin.
Hi there, it's Enid, Chair. Everybody's here now, so you're here, Kevin. You just missed the pledge, that's all. Okay, so we've done roll call. The next thing is there's a presentation from Van Ness, Hangen, Bruslin Incorporated. It's a report on the analysis of pavement conditions. So they must be here.
So this is Gordon with VHB.
Thank you, Ken.
And Kevin, you can hear, right?
Good
Yeah.
evening.
So
Right,
just to refresh the council, this was you'll recall, we had presented agreement for them to refresh the pavement assessment and they've completed the analysis and here to give us a report. So,
Daring, D-A-R-I-N-G. Right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for taking a little time to talk about pavements this evening. I do have a few slides to run through that will present to you what we mean by the term pavement management. We'll also obviously take a look at both historically and today's conditions that we've found in terms of your pavement conditions here in town. We'll look at some funding scenarios that we ran, giving you a glimpse of what might happen under different funding situations going forward, and then leave you with just a few recommendations. First of all, when we use the term pavement management, we recognize that it's a planning exercise. It has to do with planning the maintenance and rehabilitation of your pavements, trying to maximize the value and life of your pavement network. In other words, in real short layman's terms, we're trying to help you get the biggest bang for every dollar that you have to put into your pavement. The process that we go through when we conduct one of these studies starts out with an inventory of all of the town roads. We've now evaluated the town road conditions in Monroe 3 times, so I think we have a fairly solid handle on what are town roads and what are state, etc. We then do a pavement condition assessment out in the field. We go out and we look at 9 different pavement distresses, things that everyone in this room is familiar with, things like cracks, potholes, depressions in the road, etc. But we measure each one of those things in a very prescribed way. We measure the severity, in other words, how bad is the distress, as well as the extent of the distress. In other words, how prevalent is it on the particular pavement that we're looking at. We use that distress evaluation to calculate a pavement condition index, or PCI value. You'll hear me use that term a lot. The PCI value is on a scale of 0 to 100. The easiest way to think about a PCI is thinking back to the grading system that we were all subject to in school, where if you're above a 90, you're in good shape and you get a star in your paper. If you're below a 60, you're in a little bit of trouble and you need some remedial help. Once we've gone out and done that condition assessment in the field, we met with your public works staff to talk about different types of repair treatments that would be appropriate to use in town on pavements at different condition levels, and also made sure that we had good information with regard to the costs that had been incurred for using those treatments over recent history here in town. With that cost information and an understanding of what kind of treatment we were going to use on different conditioned roads, we were able to do an evaluation of, as I mentioned a moment ago, several different funding scenarios, which we'll share with you. The next steps that we'll be assisting the town with would be to use some specialized computer software that we use for the purposes of doing our analysis to help come up with what I always like to call a list of candidate projects to do. That list of candidate projects has to be refined based on engineering judgment and based on local knowledge of other things that might be impacting particular roads. I'm going to run through 5 photos that show 5 pavements that are in different condition levels using the PCI scale that I mentioned before. None of these roads are in Monroe, so you'll be happy at that when you see the last one. This one's a road in great shape, right? It's got great looking pavement, the striping is good, the curving is good, everything's great. The PCI is in 99, so it's virtually perfect shape. That's the road that everybody wants to live on. This next road, as you can see in the center of the photo, there's just a couple of little cracks to form. The PCI rating on this road has dropped to an 86, and believe it or not, this road is actually entering into the stage where it would be an ideal time to go ahead and seal the cracks, thereby preventing water from getting into the base layers of the pavement and prolonging the life of this particular pavement. On this next road, the PCI has dropped to a 73. You can see that the cracking has become more extensive, both down the center of the road as well as cracks going across the road. And at this point, the type of treatment that we might think about would be some sort of overall surface seal. You could actually go and just seal the cracks again here, but another treatment is called a double HIMA. It's basically a thin surface treatment that goes over the entire pavement. It has some polymers in it to give it a little bit better life and those kind of things. The next road is dropped to a PCI of 65. You can pretty clearly see that the cracking has become much more prevalent. The edges of the cracks are kind of curled up, showing some further distress. Pavements in this condition level are in need of some type of structural improvement. So the type of treatment we probably recommend for this particular road would be to mill the existing pavement, get rid of that old cracked pavement, and then replace it with a new hot mix asphalt pavement. In some other situations, just overlaying existing pavement in this type of condition is appropriate. It really ends up being kind of dependent upon drainage characteristics on the road and that kind of thing. And in either of those cases, it may be necessary to do a little bit of patching of the road where there are particularly pronounced distress evident. And then this is the road that nobody wants to live on. It doesn't take a pavement engineer to tell you that this road is really shot. The only way of rehabilitating a road PCI level would be to either do something like a cold in place recycle followed by an overlay, which is a treatment that has been used here in town, or some kind of full reconstruction sort of treatment. So getting to the conditions here in Monroe. There are 3 different colored bars shown here. The gray bars show the distribution of the PCI ratings that we found back in 2010. The orange bars show the distribution of the PCI ratings we found 4 years ago, essentially 4 years ago in 2014. And then the blue bars are the distribution that we found late last year when we were out in the field. The things to notice here are that the tallest bars back in 2010 were the gray bars are tallest over on the left. Those are the roads in poorest condition, PCI levels down in the 40s and 50s. As you can see over time, the height of those bars for those roads in very poor condition has dropped, both in 2014 and again in 2018. The other thing that you can really notice is that the blue bars are some of the tallest bars over on the right, and those are the roads that are in the very best condition. So there's a good trend here. That this is the first time you'll see the trend that the average conditions in town have been improving. In fact, in 2010, when we measured the conditions in town, we found that the average PCI rating in town was a 64. Late last year, we found that the average rating was a 75. So that's a significant improvement. We've done studies like this in I think, over 100 communities in New England, and making an 11-point increase in PCI over an 8-year span is fairly remarkable. It takes two things. It takes the commitment of the town to invest some dollars into the roadways, and it also takes using those dollars in a very efficient manner. Just taking a look at that in another manner, we put this slide together showing that the average was in fact at 64. When we measured that in 2010, at that time, that was the lowest average pavement condition index value that we had found in any community in New England. So the town has gone from that kind of position to a position with an average of 75 is right in the middle range of what we typically find in communities in New England. I'm not telling you that the work is done. There's still plenty of pavement improvement to be made out there, but the town should be congratulated on making a really significant improvement over the last 8 years. One other way of looking at the condition of roads townwide, this was a map showing pavement condition back in 2010. The red roads were the roads in the very worst condition. The yellow roads or gold-colored roads were the roads that needed some structural improvement. So it was virtually the whole town needed some kind of structural improvement or more. In terms of the conditions found most recently, I apologize, these colors are a little bit tougher to see, but if you kind of just take an overall glance at this, you notice a lot of blue roads. In particular, there are some neighborhoods that have been brought up to a good condition, as well as a number of the more major roads in town, which makes a lot of sense because if you've got $1 to spend on your roads, I think you'd rather put it into a road that a lot of people use on a regular basis than you would on a lightly used road. So, once again, it's been kind of an effective use of the available dollars for making pavement improvements. So, this table summarizes the costs associated with different levels of pavement repair or treatment based on the conditions that we found late last year. These 5 different categories of do nothing, routine maintenance, preventive maintenance, and so on correspond to the 5 photos that we looked at earlier. The base rehabilitation work are on the roads that are in the poorest condition. Structural improvement are the roads that need, for instance, the mill and overlay type treatment. Those 2 treatments are in fact the most expensive, and as you can see from the table, they account for about $16 million worth of, in terms of a backlog of pavement improvement needs that are out there. That's 16 million out of a total of about 17.8. Another way just to look at the same information, but graphically, is shown on these 2 pie charts. And a couple of takeaways here are that one thing to notice is that in terms of miles, if you combine the red pie and the gold pie, those are the roads that need the most significant type of treatment. Those add up to representing about 42% of the miles. They represent, let's see how good my math is here, they represent 90% of the dollars. So it's very expensive treatments. And unfortunately, there is still a fair amount of work to be done. The other takeaway from these 2 pie charts, though, are that in looking at the chart on the left where the miles, the roads in need of either routine maintenance or preventive maintenance, total 35% of the road miles, and you can treat those 35% of the miles with just 10% of the budget. So, the point I want to make here is that it's a very cost-effective thing to spend money on roads that are in good or fair condition to kind of preserve the life of those pavements. Think of it as kind of doing the oil changes that, I think everybody probably does on their vehicles. It's short dollars, but you get a great return on doing that work. So we did look at a number of different funding scenarios going forward. In the next slide, I'll present what we would project to be the results of these three scenarios, being 1.25 million, or 2 million, or 3 million spent for each of the next 5 years. As might be logical, we would project that the average conditions would improve. The amount of improvement able to be realized goes up with the amount of dollars that are spent. This chart does show, again, beginning back in 2010, that the average PCI at that point was a 64. Shows it having gone up to a 75 most recently, and with different levels of improvement, or as you can see, the 1.25 budget is projected to more or less keep conditions roughly where they are today. So in terms of some brief set of recommendations here, first of all, the way we'd like to describe it is the town should be sure to provide the funding necessary to reach the pavement goals that the town has. And the software that we have and assist your public works staff with using is capable of looking at any number of different funding scenarios that you might like to look at. On an annual basis, developing a road program that includes a mix of treatments, some of the low-cost preventive and routine maintenance, as well as getting after some of the roads that are in need of some more major repairs. And also, certainly continuing to invest in some of the more heavily used roads in town, because more people will benefit from those dollars being spent, but you also need to address some of the residential and local roads. Correcting drainage deficiencies before going in and doing pavement improvements. That's really necessary if you want those pavement improvements to last a good long time. And when on those roads that require the more major work, particularly if you're on one of the more heavily traveled roads in town, we always recommend that you do a little bit of subsurface sampling before investing the dollars into that work. It's very expensive work, and you can really learn a lot by digging a few holes and seeing what kind of materials are there, because that tells you what kind of recycling you may be able to do with the in-place materials. The next steps are really to kind of use the data that we've generated to help develop a list of candidate road projects, and refining that list based on local knowledge and good engineering judgment. With that, I would entertain any questions anyone has.
Questions, anybody? Discussion?
Let's give Chris Matthews here. If you anything you wanted to add, Chris?
First of all, I want to say thank you. I mean, as you can clearly see, the support and the funding has been beneficial for us in-house, not only just for the major work, but in getting the drainage inspection cameras and equipment that we have, that we're actually able to provide an internal service to the town and evaluate those roads to make sure that the selection of treatment that we're looking to do corresponds with the status of the drainage underneath. So thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that very greatly.
Okay. Any other discussion? Anything else? I'm sorry, Mr. Mara?
So, with the different types of treatment that you can do, is there a level that is more likely to decrease at a faster rate? Like you were talking about how with the routine maintenance you can do a lot more good for a longer period of time with less money. But that being said, on something like a structural improvement level, will that continue to decline at a faster rate than something that just needs routine maintenance, or will it decline at a slower rate?
A lot has to do with using the right treatment on the right road at the right time. If a great example would be, I mentioned the roads that are kind of in that middle PCI range, being appropriate for using some kind of a thin surface treatment. If you tried to use a thin surface treatment on a road that really needed structural improvement or base rehabilitation, it wouldn't last long at all. So a big part of the answer to your question is using the right tool or the right treatment on the right road at an appropriate time. However, I always like to think about how many years of life do I get per dollar that I spend. okay? And the years of, generally speaking, the years of life that you get from the lower cost routine and preventive maintenance treatments is greater than the years of life per dollar spent that you get for the more major improvements. Having said that, you can't just, unfortunately, asphalt does deteriorate over time, even with good maintenance. And so you can't just crack seal the road forever and ever and ever. There comes a point where it has to receive a more major improvement. I don't know if I answered your question.
Partially. When you have a road that does need a more major improvement, and you make that major improvement, but then later the cost for the regular maintenance would then significantly decrease for those roads. So you can also get a beneficial decrease eventually by putting forward a little bit of extra money and doing some of those worse off roads first, and then have just more regular maintenance that you have to do on in later years.
Certainly. I mean, for instance, using the surface seal example again, if you do that on a road that really needs to have drainage improvements and more major improvements done, you'll get, I'm making this up, but a year, 2 years, 3 years. Whereas if you did fix the drainage, do the appropriate treatment to the pavement, you should get 15, 20 years. It is a more expensive treatment, but it puts the road on a good footing, a good foundation, for then being able to be preserved long-term.
And then when you did the pavement funding scenario analysis with the different pricings, is there a way to know that the averages that you showed over 5 years, how you would have split up the types of roads that we concentrated on with those different amounts of money?
Yes, yeah. Behind that's obviously a very summarized chart, showing the average for the whole town. Behind that is a theoretical list of roads and of projects that would be done to achieve those averages. And so it shows the mix of major roads versus local roads, and it shows a mix of preservation treatments versus more major treatments.
Thank you.
Ms. Aguilar?
I actually have a question for you, Mr. Malicki. With the $1 million that we have going towards roads, do we see that, like, how far down does that blue line go if it's not 1.25?
The projection he has there shows that out over into 23 would be going to a 74, but within the combined money being bonding and the operational expense, that provides us the choice of significant capital improvements, which are going to be that longer term, that are bond qualifiable, but then the other money in the operational expense gives us the opportunity to spend and exercise some of those preventative maintenance techniques, more so crack sealing and the slurry seals to do the bell projection over the lifespan of the road.
Okay.
Okay.
If I may just,
And Mr. Reed, do you have any question or anything?
oh, yes, that's mute.
Kevin, you there? Maybe this thing did something wrong. I didn't touch it. You wanted? Yeah, well, because I like to make sure for the votes, like when I was out that day doing conference call, I made sure I made it known that whatever my vote was. You trying to get him?
He didn't text to say he dropped off.
Kevin, are you muted?
He's gone.
All right, he's gone, right?
Oh, good.
All right, maybe he's at work because he had a really important thing to do. So maybe he'll come back on, or whatever. He'll come back, I'm sure, through you. Okay, so let's go on. So thank you very much. Oh, Mr. Kirsch?
Can the public ask a few questions?
Yeah, but it has to be pretty brief. Or Mr. Kellogg's supposed to be first.
Absolutely.
First of all, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for this. I think I wanted to just, I want to take a moment and really thank Mr. Nowacki and his team for their management and oversight of this over the last 8 years. It's really remarkable to hear what you have to say in that we've gone from a community that was the worst community in all of New England that you dealt with 8 years ago to now being pretty much at the at the sweet spot of a bell curve compared to other communities. So I just want to say thank you to Mr. Nowacki and his team for managing that well. And I just to clarify too that, you know, we have had for the last few years, and what is included in fiscal year 20 is a total of $2 million in the budget, which incorporates $1 million in capital, and then the balance is a combination of operating expense and town aid road, which continues to be preserved in all the budget projections we've been given from the state. That grant is not being touched. So that does, as I think Chris was referencing earlier, gives us the flexibility to be able to address the mix of treatments that need to be done, because clearly you can't focus it 100% on, if you focus all your funds on major improvements, you're not going to do the preventive maintenance that you need to do, and vice versa. So you need to have that mix and that palette available. So I think that's what we've tried to accomplish. So thank you.
So, Mr. Kirsch?
A couple of questions, since I've been here for all of your reports.
And you know who he is, right, Carol? Okay.
That's Steve Kirsch, 35 Applegate Lane. Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions. Is the drainage in the $17 million worth of total costs that are presented in here? Because I know that Mr. Nowacki and his company have been doing storm drains and all that, but
Right.
is it part of this 17 or is that addition?
There's some drainage improvement included in the 17. If there were roads that required, you know, full replacement of, you know, storm drainage system in that road, those kind of projects are not in there.
Okay, second question. In 2010, the report said that we had about $24 million of backlog. In 2014, $1 million of backlog. Now you're telling us that we have, even with all the money we've been spending, 17 million, almost 18 million. Even though we've been spending a certain amount of money, is this high cost because costs are going up, or we're not actually spending enough to really, you know, the line has flattened out? Are we not spending enough to really make dents in significant ways?
You know, first of all, I would tell you that the fact that that backlog number is dropping year by year by year is significant. That's a good thing. There's two things at work. One is inflation, you know, because the 24 million today, I can't do that math quickly in my head, but the 24 million 8 years later, you know, would be significantly more than 24 million. The other thing is that no matter how hard I've tried through my career as a pavement engineer, I haven't been able to design a pavement that doesn't deteriorate over time. So even if, you know, with the funding that you have available, you're able to treat, let's say, 15 miles of road. There's 125 miles that are deteriorating a little bit. At the same time, you're bringing those up to a PCI of 100. You know, so you're always fighting that. So it is really challenging to bring the backlog down, and the fact that it has gone down in inflated dollars has gone down the way you're seeing it, that's pretty darn good compared to what we've seen other communities accomplish.
You indicated there will be a written report. There is a written report. Will that include a road by road or road section PCI, you know, individual road?
We
For a
have
whole list. No, I'm not talking about just a list of which ones to tackle over the next 5 years, but PCI for everybody.
we have developed we have developed a listing. It has a PCI rating for every road, and have provided it to town staff.
My last question, it may be for Ken or for Chris. Do we actually have a target PCI? Because the 82 is the number we were talking about at the presentation in September of 2010 as a 10-year goal. We're now, I'm not sure what we're actually shooting for. Those are 3 funding sources. So I'm wondering, do we have an actual target? Forget whether we're funding enough dollars or whatever. Does the town actually have a target we're shooting for?
To speak to that for the target, I would I would like to say from internal conversations and looking at the overall picture of the town and its financial position, I would say the 75 that we're currently at, addressing drainage internally, to address that and get ourselves up into the 78. We're already at the, almost the high point of the bell curve itself. I would say anywhere from where we are up into the 80s and fluctuating with our maintenance as we move along. I would say that that would be a comfortable position for the town to be in moving forward. I don't think that there's, we're clearly well above the 64 where we were. We're above the 72, and I mean, you all know we drive certain roads, and there are roads that do need work and are clearly in our sites and need significant drainage or engineering. Like I said, we're as a community overall, we're in pretty good shape. So moving up forward, it's an overall global view. Where do we want to be? Where can we be financially to dedicate funds on everything? Because you have schools that need building work, you need town halls and other facilities that need work, and vehicles and things of that sort. So, I mean, being in that 78 range up in the 80s, you can see by that one bell curve we had before, I'd say we're pretty close to where we are. Now, where we move forward from there is dependent upon many other factors.
Okay, Mr. O'Rourke?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
With looking at the payment funding scenario here, with regards to the blue line out for the 5 years, we're looking at 2.5. For the yellow line, 10 million, and then for the gray line, 15 million. The percentiles between those three, I get, 8%. Just want to throw those numbers out there because they vary widely, and the percentage of gain between the three scenarios is pretty tight.
You wanted to comment on that?
I wanted to comment on that because it goes to, that goes to how you allocate money for other things that are going on in the town as well. So I just wanted to put that out there so everybody could, see that and hear those numbers in totality with regards to the percentage of overall increase with the 15 million versus 10 versus 6.25.
And as I said earlier, the software we use allows any number of different funding scenarios to be evaluated. And as Chris mentioned, there's a recognition that every town has multiple priorities and funding needs. And it's, even though, as a pavement engineer, of course, I have a favorite son, but recognize that there's dollars need to be spent on a number of things in any community.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
No other questions, right?
Thank
All right,
you.
going on to the consent calendar, anything about the consent calendar? Otherwise, I'm passing it unanimously. For communications, we had A through M. And public participation, anybody wish to participate publicly? Come forward, you have to give us your name, address, and whatever your comments are, whatever.
Good evening. Scott Mason, 764, 770 Main Street. Excuse me. Good evening, everyone. I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity to address the council and appreciate your attention and your commitment to the town. I had the good fortune in 1988 to start Mason's Farm Market at 4 Easton Road. Throughout the years, the business grew, as did my family, and the friends and customers I got to know in town. In 2002, I purchased the property at 764, 770 Main Street with hopes to move up there at a certain point in time. I knew that my time was limited at 4 Easton Road because I figured the value of the property was such that it was more so than than a farm stand. So I stayed at 4 Easton Road until 2005 when my landlords decided to put the property on the market, and I transitioned up to 764 Main Street. At 764 Main Street, the south entrance into the property, access into the property, is controlled by a light. Now, the light has 3 lenses right now, south Route 25, north Route 25, and on Bradford Drive. There's not a lens associated with our property, but the light is right there so you can get in and out, easy access with the light. A year ago, engineer Shots Line sent me an email saying that the state had put this light on their docket to upgrade. And there was a possibility that I could have a lens associated with my access. And I said that, you know, to Scott that I would be interested. He got me in touch with engineer at the DOT, and we got the ball rolling. I followed up with engineer Matai at the DOT a couple months ago, and I didn't hear anything back from him. And then I called him, and he said that I needed to address the, you know, go through the police commission and the traffic commission and see what their say was. So what I did then was put the ball in Dave Bjorklund's court. I had Dave, who's associated with an engineer in town, address it with Chief Salvatore. And at that time, which was a couple weeks ago, Chief Salvatore came back and said that the DOT was thinking about taking the light away, removal of the light. So there's going to be a meeting with Chief Salvatore and the police commissioners March 20th. And what I've done today is I just came up with a little bit of information I'd like to disseminate to the council. And all it is what the project number is, contacts at the DOT, Scott Shots Line, the police commissioners. There's copies of the emails back and forth between DOT and Scott Shots Line and myself. There was a meeting back in 2017 in Bridgeport with the Connecticut Metropolitan Council of Governments that included most of the first selectmen. Steve Averick was there, from the surrounding towns were there along with DOT, and they voted to replace and upgrade this light along with 11 other lights. And I have that in here, along with the funding for these lights, for this whole project, was going to be funded through the federal government. There was no money that was going to come from the state and no money that was going to come from the town. So I'd like to leave this with you. I'm going to address the police commission on the 20th. I just wanted to bring you up to speed and make you aware of the situation. So if you wanted to, you know, look into it and see what the situation is. You know, it would be a total negative to me if I lost the opportunity to have that light, but I also think it would impact quite a few people in town, especially on Pastor's Walk and Wiltan, and even up on the Guinea Road, because I know there's a lot of traffic that comes down, especially during the commuting hours, and utilizes that light. So I appreciate your time. I can leave this information for everyone. Yes,
And
sir.
I just wanted to say to you, we do not comment or make any, when I was chair, that I'm still on the committee, obviously I'm vice chair. So the point is, we don't make any comments because it could become a litigious situation. So we just do not, we don't say anything on it. Don't ask any questions. We'll take your stuff.
Yeah,
I'll make
that's
sure
all.
it gets
That's all I'd like.
disseminated.
I just want.
Yeah.
It's not a fact-finding mission. What it is, it's a dissemination of
And
materials,
that's terrific.
and I just wanted to, you know, make you aware of it.
I just want to know why we're not commenting.
No, I understand. I
Perfect.
appreciate it, Ms. LaPose. Okay, thank you for your time.
Yep. So if you just speak and pass it along. You have enough copies for everybody?
Yes, I do.
Oh,
Great.
great.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Love the coin.
Anybody else want to do public participation? Mr. Kerr? Kerr.
Steve Kirsch, 35 Applegate Lane. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to address one item under Communications, item L. It's the Parks and Rec Commission attendance record. I know I've come before you in the past and said I think that is a very good thing to publish, I would really like to see consideration given to doing that and having the other boards and commissions do the same thing. I don't know if that's something the council would have to drive, or the first selectman would have to drive, or it's up to every individual board and commission to set their own policies and practices. But I think it would be very nice, and useful to see across all boards and commissions, and then put on the town's website. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to publicly participate? Okay, so I'm closing.
I think somebody.
Oh, so come on forward, could I just,
Ron just wanted to say that the meeting is on the 27th, not the 20th.
okay, thank you, Mrs. Arani. Okay, all right, so seeing nobody else, I'm going on to appointments. There are no appointments tonight. So going on to action items. A, Town Council Committee on Finance, Education, Health, and Public Safety Matters. Mr. Rooney?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. We have not met since our last council.
Okay. B, Town Council Committee on Planning and Zoning, Public Works, and Park and Recreation. They've met, but there was nothing pertaining to Town Council. So going on to C, Town Council Committee on Legislative and Administrative Matters. Mrs. Aguilar? Any comments?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Yes, we met last Wednesday, and we went over a couple items that were in your consent calendar, as well as the Board of Ed and IT services.
Okay, thank you. D, Strategic Planning Committee.
I don't believe we met.
Oh, that's Frank. The only thing he had to say was there was no report from traffic, whatever that meant. E, EMS Building Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have had some movement in regards to the CM RFP. We have completed that, and that is out, so we're waiting for proposals in regards to that, actually questions first. And once we get the questions, we will answer them and then return and see who will choose to manage that project. But that's where we are. We also have to do a quarterly report in regards to the steep grant, because we do have a steep grant with this, so every quarter we report that, so we'll be doing that shortly as well. But
Okay,
that's all I
thank you.
have.
F for Selectmen's update.
Thank you. So I'm passing out the written update. Really has just one item on there. I wanted to just take a moment to kind of just acknowledge some of the concerns that we've had in the community on the intersection of Wheeler Road and Route 110. Obviously a long-standing issue at that intersection, and really want to give a lot of the credit in terms of research and ongoing efforts on this. Really been headed up by Captain White in our police department. The primary issue historically at that intersection has been an optical illusion that is created on that was created on northbound Wheeler Road, which makes the double yellow lines appear to marry one another going across Route 110, but at the same time 110 seeming to not be there. That has historically caused traffic northbound to not stop despite the stop sign, thinking that there was no intersection there. In the past, I'm going back quite some time, the state DOT determined that the intersection did not warrant, in their opinion, a traffic signal. They've reiterated that in most recent conversations, but there have been several recommendations. Let's go back to 2016. And I wanted to make sure that the council was aware that all these revisions to that intersection, these upgrades have been made. It includes additional stop signs, additional delineators, realignment of them, widening the stop lines that are painted on Wheeler Road, painting stop ahead and stop on the pavement. There was a lot of clearance in the sight lines for tree branches that were taken back. A second stop sign was recently added on Wheeler Road, and most recently, once we identified that the state would actually allow it, and they gave us the permit for it, in the last several months, we've added the flashing LED stop sign, which is activated by the northbound traffic. Since then, we also added a crossing traffic does not stop below that. The important thing I want to highlight is that since that LED sign has been installed, there have not been any collisions based on the police department's investigations that resulted from a vehicle failing to stop. Their investigations, and again, this is the police department saying that the optical illusion was not a contributing factor, that the northbound vehicles actually did stop, but then subsequently, for whatever reason, decided to enter into the intersection. That was the cause of the accident. So while we do continue to work with it, we're trying to, we'll continue to work with DOT and our account engineer and keep and do everything we can to make sure we're cognizant of what's going on there. And we certainly share, I and others share the concerns of accidents at the intersection. The issue, however, is that it currently appears that it's driver behavior and not the design of the intersection that is causing the accidents that have happened there as of late. So that is one update. And I just wanted to briefly comment on the issue regarding the signal light on Route 25 in the area of 770 Main Street. That was brought to my attention last week. I did get the opportunity to speak to Mr. Mason about that and understood his concerns. Apparently what has happened is the state DOT has the project still on the books, so to speak, to upgrade that signal. And in the process of them moving that project forward, they have determined, they're in the process of identifying whether now they feel that the intersection, the traffic there simply doesn't warrant, in their opinion, a traffic signal there in the first place. I have not received any formal notice that the signal is going away necessarily, but I believe it's still kind of in a fact-finding phase from what I understand. I just got some information from the police chief on this. I will be sending it out to Mr. Mason, and as referenced, it is before the Board of Police Commission, which is the traffic authority for the town. So obviously it's incumbent upon them to provide their input relative to what DOT wants to do. So that's kind of where we're at, just trying to get some more information. And I'm going to certainly ask that should the DOT want to change direction, typically they provide input for the opportunity for the public to provide input, and I'm going to really press upon them that should occur if they're going to change the nature of the project, that there should be an opportunity for more public input directly to DOT. They usually will have some kind of a forum for that. So
Okay.
that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. There's no unfinished business. Going on to new business. A, acceptance of donation to Monroe Emergency Medical Services from Santa Fuel Corporation in the amount of $4,600 for the Stop the Bleed program. So I will make a motion to accept the donation of $4,600 for Monroe EMS Stop the Bleed from Santa Fuel.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Martin. Any discussion?
Thank you.
Okay, so we can vote on this. So now we have 7 people voting. So can I have a vote? All in favor? So 7, the vote is 7-0. Okay, going on to B. Resolution regarding the memorandum of understanding between the Town of Monroe and the Board of Education regarding provision of information technology services. I will introduce the motion. Resolution regarding the memorandum of understanding between the Town of Monroe and the Board of Education regarding the provision of emergency technology services, and move for its adoption. Resolved that Kenneth M. Kellogg, First Selectman of the Town of Monroe, is authorized to execute and deliver on behalf of the Town of Monroe the memorandum of understanding and any associated documents by and between the Town of the Monroe Board of Education regarding the provision of information technology services. Second, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mauer. Discussion?
Thank you. So as I guess this hasn't come before the full council, but we've discussed this a couple times, I know, at LNA. Some time ago, we had discussed the desire from all parties to kind of memorialize the current shared service that we have with the Board of Education to provide information technology. I think we're all very pleased with how it's been proceeding, and simply wanted to as I said, kind of memorialize the understanding. We've worked directly with the superintendent, the director of technology, Paul Kors, who's here, and Councilmember Reed has also been involved in his LNA role as well, and with his kind of subject matter expertise in IT as well to help in that regard. And of course, Town Attorney has also been very involved in helping to craft this, and he's provided his letter of opinion. That said, I think, you know, the MOU is fairly straightforward. It simply articulates how the shared service will work, what that scope of services is, and the existing cost structure that we've historically been agreeing to. And I'd ask that this council entertain its adoption.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
You know,
So
Dr. Zamari, the superintendent of schools, and Paul Kors, the IT director, are here just in case we have questions.
I'd also just like, thank you, Madam Chair, I'd also just like to add that LNA went over this the first time. Mr. Lido made a couple suggestions, and those amendments were made in this, in what you have before
Okay,
you.
good. Anybody else?
Thank you.
And you have nothing of the two men. Okay, so let's vote. All in favor of this? It passes, do I see 7 hands? Okay, so it passes 7-0. Thank you. Going on to C, resolution regarding the salary of the registrar of voters. I will introduce a motion and move for its adoption. Resolve the salary of the resolve the salary of each of the registrar of voters shall be $23,500 to be effective January 1st, 2020. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Mrs. Aguilar. Discussion? Anything? Yep.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jen.
We don't have any information on what this is. We don't have any paperwork
So
on.
this is in it was in the budget presentation, so I guess, yeah, we
Right.
actually never did discuss that at the workshop, yeah, okay. So, in the proposed budget, which the council has adopted, there are a couple of salary requests that come directly from elected officials, so they don't flow. I don't make any changes one way or the other in regards to those. Those come directly from those elected officials. So we've gotten, in this case, the registrar of voters have jointly requested a salary increase to be as the resolution is stated, $23,500. It would be effective January 1st, 2020. That would create so for the impact for the next fiscal year, for fiscal year 20 would be $23,000, and then in fiscal year 21, short of any, if nothing else were to change in fiscal year 21 budget, that would be the full $23,500 impact. That represents 2% each year. And what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought. So these are requests that have come directly from those elected officials. I know what I was going to say. So the elected officials' salaries cannot be modified while they're in office, while they're in term. So that is one reason why this is being requested effective January 1st. So they could not go into effect prior to, whoever's in those seats after the November election. But this is actually pushed out a little bit further than that. Instead of the end of November, it's effective January 1st. So it's basically to make it a half of a fiscal year.
Okay, Mr. Mauer?
So just to clarify, these are in effect raises that we have already approved within the
They
approved
are-
budget. It's just that we now have to vote on them because
Yes.
of the fact that they are taking place before the while they are in office, even though they don't take place until after the next
The term.
election.
Right, the financial impact is already incorporated in the budget that you've approved. Because, though, that they are salaries of elected officials, it's appropriate that the council have a very distinct separate resolution setting that salary.
And the number that was just in the motion is the number as per the approved budget.
If you look at the budget book, it will indicate a note that the council would if the council were to approve a $23,500 salary effective January 1st, the impact to fiscal year 20 would be $23,000.
Thank you.
Okay, so all in favor? Oh, Mrs. Martin?
It's per position, of course. Two
Mrs.
positions.
That was
Martin?
going to be my question. And is
So times two.
is that only the head ones, or
Well,
is it?
they're not
the
these,
assistant?
the
Those are
assistant?
the only elected positions,
Okay.
right?
Oh, that's
There were
okay.
no other
Done.
requests put in for,
Okay, so we can vote on this, all in favor of this motion? Passes 7-0, thank you. Going on to D, resolution regarding the salary of the town clerk. Resolved, so I will introduce a motion and move for its adoption. Resolved, the salary of the town clerk shall be $61,108 to be effective January 1st, 2020.
Second.
So the same kind, and seconded by Mr. Mauer, same kind of rationale, I'd assume.
yes, it's the,
Okay.
if you, I'll give you the back, so, the impact of fiscal year 20 would be $59,922, that's what's incorporated in the fiscal year 20 budget. Again, it would be 2% over each of the 2 years.
Okay, Mr. Mauer?
And just for completing the record, similar to the last position, we've already approved this through the,
Financial impact is already
Financial
incorporated in the
impact of
fiscal
the
year
budget.
20 budget.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so we've had a discussion, we've had a second. Let's vote on this. All in favor of this motion? It passes 7-0. Thank you. Going on to E, executive session to discuss strategy and negotiations with respect to a pending claim. So I'm going to make a motion to enter into executive session, inviting in Attorney Hayden, Justin Feldman, Ken Kellogg, and I need a second to this motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mauer. So if you're not on the town council or one of those two people, you have to leave. I'm getting real good at this, and I should be doing this as chair. Okay, so we're up to F, resolution authorizing the town attorney.
Hold on.
Came back in at
Oh, sorry.
9:09.
Okay. We're out of executive session, we're back. So F, resolution authorizing town attorney to settle the tax appeal, 71 Turkey Roost Road. So I will introduce a motion regarding resolution authorizing town attorney and the first selectman to settle the tax appeal, 71 Turkey Roost, and move for its adoption. Do I hear a second? Second by Mrs. Aguilar. Discussion? I think we've had that. Any comments? So on to vote. All in favor of this resolution? It passes 7-0. Any public participation? Second participation? Okay. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Rooney, seconded by Ms. Aguilar, and that's at 9:10. Okay, thanks.